Imagine waking up tomorrow to find that the very foundation of American citizenship has changed overnight. For over a century, being born on American soil has guaranteed citizenship. But in 2026, that fundamental right is under unprecedented scrutiny. What does this mean for millions of families across the United States? What does it mean for you, your children, or your future plans to come to America? This is not just politics. This is about real lives, real families, and real futures hanging in the balance. Welcome to U.S. Immigration Intel, your most trusted source for immigration news, visa updates, and citizenship information in the United States. Today we're covering one of the most significant and controversial topics in American immigration policy, birthright citizenship in 2026. Major developments are unfolding right now that could fundamentally change who gets to be an American citizen. Whether you're an immigrant, a U.S. citizen with immigrant family members, or someone planning to come to America, this issue affects you directly. We're going to break down exactly what birthright citizenship is, what's happening right now in 2026, who would be impacted by potential changes, and what this means for the future of immigration in America. Stay with us until the very end, because we'll also discuss what you can do to protect your rights and your family's future. Here at U.S. Immigration Intel, we cut through the confusion and give you the facts you need to make informed decisions about your immigration journey. Let's start with the basics, because understanding what birthright citizenship actually means is crucial to grasping why this issue is so important and so contentious. Birthright citizenship, also known as jus soli, which is Latin for right of the soil, is the principle that anyone born on U.S. territory automatically becomes a U.S. citizen, regardless of their parents' immigration status or nationality. This concept has been part of American law since the ratification of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution in 1868. The 14th Amendment states very clearly, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. This language was originally intended to ensure that formerly enslaved people and their children would be recognized as full citizens after the Civil War, overturning the infamous Dred Scott decision that had denied citizenship to African Americans. For more than 150 years, this provision has been interpreted to mean that virtually anyone born on American soil, with very limited exceptions, is automatically a U.S. citizen from birth. The exceptions are extremely narrow and include children born to foreign diplomats who have diplomatic immunity and children born to enemy forces during a military occupation of U.S. territory. Apart from these rare circumstances, every baby born in the United States receives citizenship automatically. This has been the settled law of the land, upheld by Supreme Court decisions, and followed consistently by every administration, regardless of political party. It's estimated that approximately 250,000 to 300,000 babies are born each year in the United States to at least one parent who is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. These children become U.S. citizens at birth under the current interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Now let's talk about what's happening in 2026 and why this long-established principle is suddenly under threat. There have been ongoing political debates about birthright citizenship for years, but these discussions have intensified dramatically. Some political leaders and policymakers have argued that birthright citizenship creates an incentive for unauthorized immigration, claiming that people come to the United States specifically to give birth so their children will be American citizens, a practice sometimes referred to pejoratively as birth tourism, or anchor babies. These critics argue that the 14th Amendment was never intended to apply to children of people who are in the country illegally or on temporary visas, and that the phrase "subject to the jurisdiction thereof" should be interpreted to exclude such children from automatic citizenship. In 2026, there are reports of potential executive actions, legislative proposals, and legal challenges aimed at reinterpreting or restricting birthright citizenship. Some proposals would attempt to redefine birthright citizenship through executive order, arguing that the president has the authority to direct federal agencies on how to interpret and apply the 14th Amendment. Other approaches involve introducing legislation in Congress that would define who is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States for citizenship purposes, potentially excluding children born to parents who are not U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents. There are also legal challenges working their way through the courts that could ultimately reach the Supreme Court and potentially result in a reinterpretation of this constitutional provision. The implications of any change to birthright citizenship would be massive and far-reaching. Let's break down exactly who would be affected and how. First and foremost, children born in the United States to undocumented parents would be directly impacted. Under current law, these children are U.S. citizens, even though their parents are not lawfully present in the country. If birthright citizenship were restricted, these children could be born stateless or would only have citizenship in their parents' country of origin, a country they may never have visited and with which they may have no real connection. This could create a permanent underclass of people who were born and raised in America but have no legal status and no pathway to citizenship. Children born to parents on temporary visas would also be affected. This includes babies born to tourists, students on F1 visas, workers on H-1B visas, or people on other temporary non-immigrant visa categories. Currently, if you're in the United States on a valid visa and you have a baby, that baby is automatically a U.S. citizen. Under proposed restrictions, this might no longer be the case. The child might only be eligible for citizenship in the parent's home country, creating complicated situations where children grow up in America but are not Americans, or where families must eventually leave the United States and take their American-born but now non-citizen children with them. The impact on mixed-status families would be particularly devastating. Imagine a family where one parent is a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident and the other parent is undocumented. Under current law, their child born in the United States is automatically a citizen. If birthright citizenship is restricted, the rules might become incredibly complex. Would the child's citizenship depend on which parent they're born to? Would there be different rules for children born to one citizen parent versus two non-citizen parents? The potential for family separation and legal complexity is enormous. Legal permanent residents, people with green cards, might also face uncertainty depending on how any restrictions are crafted. Some proposals explicitly state that children born to at least one parent who is a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident would still receive birthright citizenship. But the details matter enormously. Would both parents need to be lawful permanent residents, or would one be sufficient? What about people who are in the process of adjusting their status? What about refugees or asylum seekers whose status is still being determined? The potential for confusion and injustice is staggering. Beyond the immediate impact on children and families, changing birthright citizenship would have profound effects on American society and the economy. The United States has a population of about 330 million people. It's estimated that approximately 10 to 11 million of those are undocumented immigrants. If birthright citizenship were eliminated going forward, and if those undocumented immigrants continued to have children in the United States within a generation, you could have millions of young people who were born and raised in America, who speak English as their first language, who went to American schools, who consider themselves American in every meaningful sense, but who have no legal status and no pathway to citizenship. This would create enormous social problems, educational challenges, employment issues, and questions about civil rights and human dignity. The economic impact would also be significant. U.S. citizens have the right to work anywhere in the country without restriction. They can serve in the military, work for the government, and pursue any career path. If millions of young people born in America are denied citizenship, they would face severe limitations on their ability to participate in the economy. Many would work in the underground economy without legal protection, driving down wages and working conditions for everyone. Others might leave the United States for countries where they do have citizenship, representing a brain drain of people educated at American taxpayers' expense. There are also serious constitutional and legal questions about whether birthright citizenship can actually be changed without amending the Constitution. The 14th Amendment is quite clear in its language, and it's part of the Constitution itself, not just a statute or regulation. Changing a constitutional amendment requires either a two-thirds vote in both houses of Congress and ratification by three-fourths of the states, or a constitutional convention called by two-thirds of state legislatures. This is an extremely high bar that has only been cleared 27 times in American history. Many constitutional scholars argue that birthright citizenship cannot be eliminated or restricted by executive order, by statute, or even by Supreme Court reinterpretation because the 14th Amendment's language is so explicit. However, others argue that the phrase "subject to the jurisdiction thereof" provides room for interpretation, and that Congress or the courts could define its meaning more narrowly. If there were attempts to change birthright citizenship through executive action or legislation, immediate legal challenges would certainly follow. Civil rights organizations, immigrant advocacy groups, and affected individuals would file lawsuits arguing that such actions are unconstitutional. These cases would work their way through the federal court system, potentially taking years to resolve. During that time, there would be enormous uncertainty. Would children born during this period be considered citizens or not? Would birth certificates be issued? Would these children be able to get social security numbers, passports, and other documents? The practical chaos could be immense. International comparisons are also instructive. The United States is one of about 30 countries in the world that grants unrestricted birthright citizenship. Most of these countries are in the Americas, including Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and many others. Most European and Asian countries do not grant automatic citizenship to everyone born on their territory. Instead, they typically grant citizenship based on parentage, known as jus sanguinis, or right of blood. Some countries have mixed systems where birthright citizenship is granted only if at least one parent is a citizen or lawful resident, or only if the child would otherwise be stateless. Proponents of restricting birthright citizenship often point to these other countries as models, arguing that America is out of step with the rest of the developed world. Opponents counter that birthright citizenship is part of what makes America exceptional, a nation built by immigrants where anyone born on American soil is equally American regardless of their ancestry. The political dynamics around this issue are intense and deeply partisan. Generally speaking, those who favor stricter immigration enforcement and reduced immigration levels tend to support restricting or eliminating birthright citizenship. They argue that it's necessary to discourage illegal immigration, to prevent exploitation of American generosity, and to ensure that citizenship is meaningful and valued. Those who support immigrant rights and more expansive immigration policies tend to strongly oppose any changes to birthright citizenship. They argue that it's a fundamental constitutional right, that it promotes integration and equality, and that eliminating it would create a hereditary underclass inconsistent with American values. Public opinion on the issue is divided and often depends on how the question is framed. Polls show that significant numbers of Americans support some restrictions on birthright citizenship, but also that many don't fully understand the constitutional issues involved or the practical implications of such changes. Let's talk about what this means for you specifically depending on your situation. If you are currently living in the United States without legal status and you have children or are planning to have children, the uncertainty around birthright citizenship is deeply concerning. Under current law, any child you have in the United States is automatically a U.S. citizen. This provides that child with opportunities and rights that you may not have. It also means that when your child turns 21, they could potentially sponsor you for a green card, providing a pathway to legal status for the whole family. If birthright citizenship is restricted, this pathway could disappear. Your children might be in the same legal limbo that you are, facing the same barriers and discrimination. This makes it more important than ever to explore whether you have any options for legal status now, whether through asylum, family sponsorship, special programs, or other means. If you are in the United States on a temporary visa and you're pregnant or planning to have children, you need to be aware of these developments. Currently, if you have a baby while you're here on a valid visa, that baby is a U.S. citizen. This is true whether you're on a tourist visa, a student visa, a work visa, or any other lawful temporary status. Your child would have all the rights of U.S. citizenship even if you eventually have to leave the country. If birthright citizenship is restricted, this might change. It's important to consult with an immigration attorney to understand your specific situation and what options you might have to protect your child's future citizenship. If you are a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident with a partner who is not, and you have children or are planning to, you should also be paying attention. Current proposals to restrict birthright citizenship typically exempt children who have at least one parent who is a citizen or lawful permanent resident, but the details matter. Make sure you understand how any proposed changes would affect your family. Keep excellent records of your own citizenship or immigration status and your children's birth records. If you're married to someone who is undocumented, explore whether there are any pathways to help them obtain legal status, especially if there are changes on the horizon that could affect your children. If you are planning to immigrate to the United States in the future, understand that the rules around birthright citizenship could be different by the time you arrive. This doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't pursue your American dream, but it does mean you need to be informed and strategic. Work with qualified immigration professionals who can help you navigate the complex and changing landscape. Make sure any children born after you immigrate have their citizenship status clearly established and documented. So, what can you actually do about all of this? First and foremost, stay informed. Follow reliable news sources, including U.S. immigration intel, to keep up with developments. Don't rely on rumors or social media posts for critical information about your immigration status or your children's citizenship. Second, document everything. Keep copies of your children's birth certificates, your own immigration documents, marriage certificates, and anything else that establishes your family's legal status and history. These documents could be crucial if there are legal challenges or changes to the rules. Third, consult with a qualified immigration attorney. Immigration law is complex and constantly changing. An experienced attorney can assess your specific situation, explain your options, and help you make informed decisions. Don't try to navigate this alone. Fourth, get involved politically if you're eligible to do so. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have the right to vote and to make your voice heard. Contact your representatives in Congress and let them know how you feel about birthright citizenship and immigration policy more broadly. Attend town halls, write letters, make phone calls. Democracy requires participation. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you can still support organizations that advocate for immigrant rights and fair immigration policies. Fifth, consider your long-term plans carefully. If you're in the United States on a temporary basis and you're building a life here, explore pathways to permanent residence. Don't assume that having U.S. citizen children will always provide a safety net if birthright citizenship rules change. Secure your own status whenever possible. It's also important to be realistic about timelines and probabilities. Major constitutional changes don't happen overnight. Even if there are serious efforts to restrict birthright citizenship, they will face significant legal and political obstacles. Courts move slowly, especially on constitutional questions. Any changes would likely be tied up in litigation for years. That said, the direction of travel matters. Even if birthright citizenship isn't eliminated tomorrow, the debate itself creates uncertainty and fear. This can affect how immigration officials treat cases, how policies are enforced, and what options are available. The political climate matters even when the law hasn't technically changed yet. For those of you watching from outside the United States and considering immigration, understand that America remains a nation of immigrants with more pathways to legal status than almost any other country. The debates over birthright citizenship, while significant, are part of a larger ongoing conversation about what it means to be American and who gets to belong. These debates have been happening since the founding of the Republic. Immigration policy has always been contested and has always evolved. The best approach is to pursue legal pathways to immigration, work with qualified professionals, and don't let fear or uncertainty paralyze you. At the same time, be realistic about the challenges and have backup plans. One often overlooked aspect of this debate is the impact on American soft power and global standing. The United States has long presented itself as a beacon of freedom and opportunity, a place where anyone can become American. Birthright citizenship is a powerful symbol of this openness and inclusivity. Restricting or eliminating it would send a message to the world about America becoming more closed, more focused on ancestry and blood rather than values and contribution. This could have implications for how America is perceived globally, for diplomatic relationships, for trade, for cultural exchange, and for the willingness of talented people around the world to choose America as their destination. These broader impacts are harder to quantify than immediate legal effects, but they're real and significant. There's also a generational dimension to consider. Young Americans, including those from immigrant families, tend to have more inclusive views on immigration and citizenship than older generations. As the electorate changes over time, political dynamics around these issues will shift as well. What seems politically popular or feasible now might look very different in 10 or 20 years. Constitutional changes, if they were to happen, would have effects that last for generations, long after the political circumstances that led to them have changed. This is one reason why constitutional amendments are meant to be difficult to achieve, requiring broad and enduring consensus rather than temporary political majorities. We should also acknowledge the human stories behind these policy debates. Every statistic about birthright citizenship represents a real person, a real family, real hopes and dreams. There are children who were born in America, who pledge allegiance to the flag every morning in school, who dream of becoming doctors or teachers or entrepreneurs, whose entire identity is American, even though their parents came here without authorization. There are parents who risked everything to give their children a better life, who work multiple jobs, who pay taxes, who contribute to their communities, who want nothing more than for their children to have opportunities they never had. There are mixed status families torn between their love for each other and the brutal realities of immigration law. These human dimensions sometimes get lost in abstract policy discussions, but they're what this is really about. That brings us to the conclusion of today's critical update on birthright citizenship in 2026. We've covered what birthright citizenship is, why it's under threat, who would be affected, what the legal and constitutional issues are, and what you can do to protect yourself and your family. This is one of the most important immigration issues facing the United States right now, with implications that will shape the country for generations. Whether you're an immigrant, a U.S. citizen with immigrant family members, or someone planning to come to America, you need to stay informed and engaged. Here at U.S. Immigration Intel, we're committed to bringing you accurate, timely, and comprehensive information on all aspects of U.S. immigration and citizenship. If this video helped you understand this complex issue, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to U.S. Immigration Intel so you never miss an important update that could affect your immigration journey or your family's future. Turn on notifications so you're alerted as soon as we post new content about visa changes, policy updates, and immigration news. Share this video with friends, family, and anyone else who needs to understand what's happening with birthright citizenship. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to immigration. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on this issue, or if you have questions we can address in future videos. We read every comment, and we're here to help you navigate the complex world of U.S. immigration. Keep following U.S. Immigration Intel for all the latest updates, expert analysis, and practical guidance you need to achieve your American dream. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay hopeful, and remember that here at U.S. Immigration Intel, we're with you every step of the way on your journey to America.